When Italian inventor Guglielmo Marconi invented the radio in 1895, it ushered in a new era of communication and entertainment that would forever change the world. People from all over the country and around the globe could listen to the same radio broadcast in real time without delay or distortion. Radio brought the world together in a way that had never been possible before, and such a feat would never be replicated in magnitude until the public unveiling of the Internet in 1993. It wouldn't take long, however, before the radio would be used for more sinister purposes. Throughout the first half of the 20th century and both the First and Second World Wars, belligerent states often forced citizens of enemy nations who were trapped in their countries upon the outbreak of war to become radio personalities to broadcast propaganda messages towards their homeland in an attempt to demoralize them. For the Americans fighting in the Pacific, it wasn't uncommon to hear the infamous Tokyo Rose broadcasting in English Japanese propaganda against American troops, telling them that the war was lost and to go home. Tokyo Rose, or Orphan Anne as she was officially known as, was a Japanese American by the name of Ikuko Toguri who became trapped in Japan upon the outbreak of war with the United States. For British troops defending the home front during the Blitz, news quickly spread of a British radio personality nicknamed Lord Haw-Haw, who spouted Nazi propaganda with an upper-class British accent towards the British Isles from the safety of the German fatherland during the Second World War. The man most commonly known as Lord Haw-Haw was an American-born British national by the name of William Joyce. While many of these radio personalities were eventually repatriated to their homelands after the war, such as was the case with Mrs. Toguri, others were never heard from again and disappeared off the face of the earth. In today's video, we are taking a look at one of the most mysterious propaganda broadcasters of all time, an American woman who broadcasted North Korean propaganda in English to U.S. soldiers during the Korean War. This is the story of Seoul City Sue. Seoul City Sue, aka Anna Wallis, was born in Lawrence County, Arkansas in the year of 1900. Born into a Methodist family, she spent much of her early adult life as a Sunday school teacher while she pursued a bachelor's degree in ministry services at the Scarlett College for Christian Workers in Nashville, Tennessee. After graduating in 1930, she was selected for a mission to Japanese-occupied Korea that same year, where she taught young Korean children at a Methodist school. However, as the years went by, the Japanese began restricting foreign missionaries from coming to Korea, and Anna, along with her congregation, were forced to relocate to Shanghai in 1938. It is in Shanghai where she met her future husband, So Kyu-chol, a Korean national who was hired to help translate for students. Due to laws at the time, in the United States a woman's citizenship was tied to that of her husband's. Anna marrying a Korean national meant that she was no longer a U.S. citizen and was hence therefore a Korean citizen by the name of Anna Wallis Suh. Upon the breakout of the Second Sino-Japanese War, she would remain in Japanese-occupied Shanghai until 1943, when she, along with other foreigners, were placed in detention at the Taipei Relocation Center until 1945, after the end of the Second World War. Unable to survive in the destroyed post-war Shanghai, she returned to the now liberated Korea that same year, where she continued teaching for the American diplomatic mission in Seoul with her husband. This would continue until 1949, when she was fired on the suspicion of being a communist spy based on her husband's far-left political beliefs. As fate would have it, not long after her termination, North Korea would steamroll across the 38th parallel, starting the Korean War and catapulting Anna Suh into the history books. Seoul was quickly overwhelmed and captured by the Korean People's Army a mere 72 hours after the invasion began. This left many foreigners, including Anna Suh, bewildered at this situation, as the South Korean radio broadcast painted a very different picture of the dire situation. Unable to evacuate and faced with no other choice, Anna, along with her husband and many others trapped in Seoul, swore allegiance to Kim Il-sung and the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. It wouldn't be long at all before the North Koreans found a use for Mrs. Suh. Soon after her Pledge of Allegiance, Anna Suh began broadcasting English-language propaganda for Radio Seoul in the communist-controlled capital, and soon became known as Seoul City Sue by American GIs. The earliest known broadcast from Seoul City Sue was believed to have been July 18th of 1950. In her broadcast, she would attempt to demoralize U.S. troops by telling them that their girlfriends and wives were cheating on them back home. She would deride African American soldiers for fighting for a country that denies them basic civil rights at home, as well as welcoming the arrival of new ships and units into Korea, often taunting the new soldiers by commenting on how cold they must be in the harsh winter.
Hi, fellas. How are you today? Not so good, huh? Well, you know what General Sherman said about war. Oh, well, it'll only last 7 or 8 years, fellas. Of course, it could be less than that if your leaders would only listen to reason. But let's not talk about it. I'm going to play some real dreamy music for you. But first, I want to welcome some new fellows into the line, the 305th Infantry Regiment. I'm sorry the weather's so bad for you. We had planned to fix all the roads before you came, but there isn't much we can do about it now. Incidentally, keep your feet dry, fellas. Your medics can't do a thing for frozen toes, and your girlfriends back home don't want you crippled. Take it easy, huh?
Some of her more chilling broadcasts would include reading the names of killed U.S. troops that day via their recovered dog tags over soft background music. She would also announce the names of captured U.S. servicemen. On August 13th, Seoul City Sue's radio program was temporarily silenced when a B-26 Marauder dropped explosive ordnance over Radio Seoul, destroying their broadcasting equipment. Suh, along with her husband, were shortly after forced to evacuate Seoul altogether following the U.S. landings at Incheon and subsequent liberation of Seoul from the north. Seoul City Sue's broadcast would continue some weeks later before she was eventually assigned to indoctrinate captured UN soldiers on the ideas of communism in February of 1951. Afterwards, she would continue to make sporadic broadcasts for US troops until the ceasefire in 1953. The ultimate fate of Anna Wallis Suh after the Korean War remains a mystery. North Korea has never publicly commented on the matter, nor had she ever appeared in any propaganda since her radio broadcasts. The only source of information we have is an anecdotal story by Charles Robert Jenkins, an American GI who defected to North Korea in 1965, who wrote in his book, The Reluctant Communist, My Desertion, Court-Martial, and 40-Year Imprisonment in North Korea, about meeting Anna Suh at a department store in Pyongyang, writing, "So I walked up to her and said, 'Hello, Suh Anna Sunsang.' Sunsang is the Korean word for teacher. It was winter and she was wearing a black leather coat, very put together. She looked surprised and turned, looked at me and said, 'Oh, you must be the American who just came over.' I said, 'Uh-huh,' but she was spooked. The second we met, she wanted to get the hell out of there. She excused herself, saying she really needed to be going, and was gone." Jenkins also writes that according to what he had been told by his minders, Anna Wallis Suh had been executed by the North Koreans in 1969 on allegations of being a spy for South Korea, writing, "I have no idea if any of this is true. That is what they told me, and we certainly never saw her again or heard from anyone who had." Whether or not she was actually a spy for South Korea has never been verified. The South Korean government has never publicly commented on the matter. So, what do we make of Anna Wallis Suh? Was she a traitor to her homeland who demoralized and antagonized US troops on behalf of Communist Korea? Or did she do so reluctantly because she had no other choice? Opinions are divided on the matter. Defenders of Anna Wallis Suh will point out that her bland, monotone voice over radio broadcasts are proof that she was being forced to make these broadcasts. They also point out that Anna, being a lifelong Methodist, would not willingly join the communists who regularly oppressed and killed Christian missionaries such as herself. As to whether or not she was a traitor, this is where the water gets murky. Anna Wallis was indeed born and raised in the United States. However, as mentioned before, she married a Korean national, and in accordance with law in the United States at the time, this meant that she had lost her US citizenship and was then a Japanese citizen. Remember, Korea was a Japanese colony at this time. In fact, Anna would have 4 separate nationalities during her life: American, Japanese, South Korean, and then finally North Korean. We know that she attempted to reclaim her US citizenship at one point as well as acquire a passport for her husband. However, this ultimately failed, reaffirming the fact that she was no longer a US citizen, meaning that she technically wasn't a traitor and legally could not be charged with treason had she have been captured. As for the broadcasts themselves, the impact of them were reportedly very limited, with most American GIs thinking them boring rather than demoralizing. GIs calling them dry and monotonous to generally one of disgust and boredom. Many GIs also criticized her program for not having any good music to play, unlike Tokyo Rose's program, which did feature contemporary music. An American war correspondent said of Sue that she talks in a monotone, her voice is icy, she exudes the passion of a well-boiled vegetable. What in the name of Lenin she thinks she is going to accomplish, and who in tarnation she expects to impress with her type of spiel beats the living daylights out of me. Regardless, she was popular enough along the front to the point where American GIs soon wrote a song about her titled Seoul City Sue. Seoul City Sue, Seoul City Sue, your hair is black and your eyes are too. I'd swap my honey cart for you, Seoul City Sue, Seoul City Sue. No one smells of kimchi like my sweet Seoul City Sue. She was also referenced in several episodes of the popular 1970s television show MASH, where reproductions of her broadcasts were often heard throughout the camp and used as plot devices. Though not as popular as her World War II predecessors, Seoul City Sue nevertheless earned her spot in history. Depending on what camp you side on, she was either a victim of sexist xenophobic citizenship laws which forced her into capture by North Koreans, where she was held against her will until her untimely death, or a Methodist turned communist traitor who married a Marxist, then betrayed her homeland and taunted US troops. Regardless of what really happened, the reasons behind Anna Wallis Suh's actions and subsequent life and death in North Korea will likely forever remain a mystery. This is Jesse from Chosun Yonghwa Review, everybody, and have a nice day.